DNA Saga, once upon a time in the bustling city of Lagos, there lived a young couple, Ade and Kemi. Ade was a successful businessman, known for his sharp mind and shrewd deals, while Kemi was a soft-spoken school teacher with a heart full of kindness. They had been married for 8 years and had one child, a bubbly and intelligent 6-year-old girl named Teni. Teni was the light of their lives, the glue that held them together through the ups and downs of marriage. She had Ade's striking eyes and Kemi's delicate smile, or so everyone thought. But the cracks in their seemingly perfect family began to show one fateful day. It all started with an innocent comment from Ade's mother during a family gathering. She leaned toward Ade and whispered, "Teni doesn't look like anyone in our family. Are you sure she's yours?" Ade laughed it off, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Over the next few weeks, he began to notice small things. A mannerism that didn't match his or Kemi's, a feature he couldn't trace to either side of the family. The whispers grew louder in his mind, and soon Ade couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. Please support this channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing. Without telling Kemi, Ade took strands of Teni's hair and sent them for a DNA test. Weeks later, the results arrived. Teni was not his biological child. Ade was devastated. Betrayal burned in his chest like a wildfire. He confronted Kemi that evening, waving the DNA results in her face. "How could you do this to me after everything we built?" he shouted, his voice trembling with anger and heartbreak. Kemi was stunned. "What are you talking about, Ade? Of course, Teni is your daughter. How dare you accuse me of cheating?" But Ade wouldn't listen. He accused her of infidelity and branded her a liar. He moved out of the house and refused to talk to her, leaving Kemi to face the judgmental stares of neighbors and family members. Despite the shame and accusations, Kemi refused to give up. She was adamant that she had never been unfaithful. To clear her name, she decided to take a DNA test of her own. Weeks later, her results came in, and they shook her to the core. Teni was not her biological child either. Kemi couldn't believe it. Tears streamed down her face as she clutched the report. How could this be? She had carried Teni in her womb, endured labor, and loved her unconditionally since birth. It was impossible, wasn't it? Armed with this shocking revelation, Kemi reached out to Ade. For the first time in months, they sat down together, their anger replaced by confusion and fear. "If Teni isn't my child and she isn't yours, then whose child is she?" Ade asked, his voice barely a whisper. The couple decided to retrace their steps. They contacted the hospital where Teni had been born and demanded an investigation. After weeks of digging, the hospital made a grim confession. 6 years ago, there had been a mix-up in the maternity ward. Babies had been switched. Kemi and Ade were devastated. Their biological child was out there somewhere, being raised by another family, while they had been raising someone else's child. After Ade and Kemi learned about the devastating baby swap at the hospital, their lives became a whirlwind of questions. How could this have happened? Who were the people responsible? And most importantly, how did Teni, the child they had loved and raised, come into their lives? Determined to uncover the truth, Ade and Kemi dove deeper into the events surrounding Teni's birth. What they discovered was even more shocking than they could have imagined. 6 years earlier, Kemi had gone into labor at the crowded city hospital, one known for being understaffed and chaotic. The maternity ward was buzzing with activity that day. Several women gave birth almost simultaneously, and the nurses struggled to keep up. Kemi remembered being exhausted after a long labor and barely coherent when Teni was placed in her arms. She had trusted the hospital staff without question. After all, why wouldn't she? Unbeknownst to her, another woman, a teenage girl named Amara, had given birth around the same time. Amara was unmarried, scared, and alone. Her family had disowned her when they learned of her pregnancy. Desperate and overwhelmed, Amara had planned to leave the hospital and abandon her newborn. As Ade and Kemi pressed the hospital administration for answers, they uncovered a dark truth. A nurse named Clara had been responsible for the baby swap. Clara, who had been working a double shift that day, had taken pity on Amara and her baby. She had tried to convince the young mother to keep her child, but Amara had refused, insisting she couldn't raise a baby in her situation. Consumed by guilt and compassion, Clara made a life-altering decision. She switched Amara's baby with Kemi and Ade's newborn son, believing the latter would have a better chance at life with loving parents like Ade and Kemi. Amara's child, the girl who would become Teni, was given to Ade and Kemi, while their biological son, Daniel, was handed to Amara. Kemi and Ade were shocked to learn about Amara and insisted on finding her. The hospital provided limited information, but with persistence they tracked her down to a small village on the outskirts of Lagos. Amara was now married with another child and living a modest life. When Kemi and Ade confronted her, Amara broke down in tears. She confessed that after abandoning her baby at the hospital, she had tried to move on with her life. She had no idea that her child had been swapped or that she had been raising someone else's son. "I never wanted to hurt anyone," Amara sobbed. "I was just a scared girl with no options. I had no idea Clara would do something like that." The realization that Teni had been abandoned by her biological mother was a bitter pill for Kemi and Ade to swallow. How could anyone give up a child so easily? But as they looked at Teni, laughing and playing in the yard, they knew it didn't matter. She was theirs, regardless of how she came into their lives. However, Teni's biological connection to Amara couldn't be ignored. Ade and Kemi decided that Teni deserved to know the truth about her origins when the time was right. They also resolved to maintain contact with Amara, not as an obligation, but as part of giving Teni a fuller understanding of her identity. Meanwhile, Ade and Kemi continued building a relationship with their biological son, Daniel, who was being raised by the Johnsons. Daniel was shy and reserved at first, confused by the sudden presence of new parents in his life. But over time, he grew more comfortable with Kemi and Ade. The Johnsons, too, opened their hearts, and soon both families formed an unusual but loving bond. The children began to spend weekends together, gradually understanding the strange twist of fate that had brought them into each other's lives. The journey of uncovering the truth brought pain, but also healing. Kemi and Ade forgave Clara, though they ensured the hospital implemented stricter policies to prevent future tragedies. They also reconciled with Amara, who expressed her gratitude for the life they had given Teni. For Teni and Daniel, the situation eventually became less about loss and more about gaining a larger family. Teni grew up knowing she was deeply loved by Kemi and Ade, even if they weren't her biological parents. Daniel, too, thrived, surrounded by the love of two sets of parents. Years later, Teni, now an adult, reflected on her unusual upbringing. She became an advocate for children's rights, using her story to shine a light on the importance of family, love, and accountability in healthcare systems. Daniel, inspired by the love and support he had received, became a pediatrician, determined to ensure no child was ever caught in such a confusing web of identity. As for Ade and Kemi, they remained the pillars of a now blended family, cherishing the connections that transcended blood. As the curtain closes on this incredible tale, the DNA Saga leaves us with one powerful message. Family is not defined by DNA but by love, care, and the bonds we choose to nurture. Ade and Kemi's journey through heartbreak, discovery, and forgiveness reminds us that life can take unexpected turns, but how we respond to them defines who we are. This story is a testament to resilience, understanding, and the power of human connection. It's about finding hope in the most unexpected places and building bridges instead of walls when faced with the unthinkable. Sometimes the people we call family are not those we share blood with, but those we share life with. Whether by fate or choice, love is what truly makes a family. Let us remember that every child, regardless of how they came into our lives, deserves a world full of love and acceptance. If you were moved by this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Have you or someone you know experienced a family story as extraordinary as this? Share your thoughts and stories in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. Stay tuned for more real-life tales that touch the heart and challenge the way we see the world. Thank you for watching, and remember, love transcends all.